ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to the final Waterstone Election 2020 podcast. This is the what the hell just happened post-election episode where we attempt to explain what the hell just happened. I'm your host, editor of the Daily Blog Martyn Bradbury. With me in the studio is Libertarian political commentator and stuff columnist Damien, and joining us is the former leader of the National Party, Simon Bridges, although maybe during this show he might be the future leader again. Well, the polls were all wrong. It wasn't a Labour landslide. It was a great crimson tsunami of righteousness that swept all before it. Labour won the party vote in every single South Island electorate. Consider the magnitude of that statement. Act cannibalised National Party vote like a brain-hungry zombie in an open skull all-you-can-eat buffet restaurant. The Greens were saved by lefty Labour supporters impatient with Jacinda's timid policy platform. Chloe proved what a terrible candidate Helen White really was, and the Māori Party staged the greatest political comeback since Winston Peters. Damien, election night highlight for you, sir.
David Seymour coming in on the boat.
That was beautiful. That was absolute class.
Not quite the white charger. That would have been, but coming in on the boat, beer in hand, just a magnificent you.
Simon, election night highlight for you, sir, if there was one.
There actually were no highlights. No, it was a pretty grim night. And I was there at the Tauranga Golf Club with, 100 or 150 supporters, and I was meant to be getting around and talking to them, but to be honest, when I first got in, I was worried I wasn't going to have a seat, seeing the early numbers, because, look, it was, as you say, just a caning all around the country. And the thing that surprised me, I knew we were going to lose, but the thing that surprised me was just even in the blue seats, electorate MPs, good, hard-working MPs, guys like Jonathan Young and New Plymouth, or Lawrence Yule over in Tuki, who lost.
Let's get into it. Labour 49.1%, and obviously on specials will go up. Damien, it was a crimson tsunami of righteousness which quenched the land of the selfish. Turns out it's not communism by stealth if the entire country is screaming for it. Jacinda understood the new psychology of the electorate far better than the right did, didn't she?
Well, it's not just the 50% of Labour. You got the Greens on top. So the left-wing vote blew out to about 57, 58%. That is a huge shift. And I don't buy the stuff about National Party voters voting tactically. Yeah. I mean, look how hard it was to teach to do what they're told in Epsom.
Right.
I mean, I think this was a genuine vote for Labour.
Simon, the National Party 45 plus female voters that Labour lost to John Key have all come home to Jacinda. The radical right policies of an ascendant ACT plus National aren't going to woo those voters back in 2023. Labour owns the centre now, don't they?
Yeah, they do own the centre for this moment in time. And I think, look, I understand what Damien's saying. I do think there was... Look, different people have voted different ways, right?
Sure.
Urban seats, there's one thing going on. In the rural, I do think there was the tactical thing. I think they saw the stuff about the wealth tax. They didn't like the Greens, and they moved in to give Labour the majority they thought they needed so they don't have to rely on them. We'll see whether the farmers were smart or not on that, right? That's an open question. I think there is an issue for Jacinda, though, in this majority. It will mean, if she was already a cautious Conservative politician, I agree with Damien's column over the weekend, she'll be even more cautious and Conservative. And look, that's, in one reading, bad for the National side of Parliament, but on another does present some opportunities for aspiration, for policies that are bigger and bolder after 6 years, frankly, of not very much happening, which could be what we're in for.
Do you see those National Party 45 plus female voters, do you see them coming back to National in 2023? What could bring them back?
What would bring them back would obviously be, there's some preconditions for us that whether they're just basic hygiene, as John Key, I think, used to call them. We've got to be united. We've got to be competent. What will also, I think, will be required will be a much sharper focus on their back pockets, their livelihoods, the economics, if you like, the economy, if you like, Because without that, if it's just a bit like this electorate, where actually people feel pretty well off for the most part, if they're still feeling that like that in 2023, well, that's obviously going to be very.
But won't act terrify the bejesus, Damien, out of those 45 plus soft national voters? They're not going to come back for an ACT Party 2023 national government, are they?
I mean, let's roll back to 6 months before the pandemic, and Simon was looking, 50-50 whether he could bring national
That's right.
back in.
That's right.
And it was events that changed the dynamic.
Yep.
And so what we don't know what's going to happen, and the big monkey in the room is the economy.
Yes.
So if the economy limps along for the next 3 years, then it's going to be hard for National ACT to create a narrative to pull them back.
Yes.
If the economy implodes,
Yep.
then that's going to be the one thing that's going to cause people to rethink.
Will they go closer to Labour because they're fearful, or will they take a risk with a radical ACT and national government? Are they? Well, that's a serious question.
No, that very well could happen. So if somebody loses their job as a result of the economy, government incompetence, who the hell knows, then suddenly those people are no longer comfortable middle managers. They're getting income from the state. They may decide, well, I'm poor now, so I'm going to look to the state. So that is definitely a thing that could happen. I mean, people in the United States, conservative middle managers in the Depression voted for FDR.
Right.
And remember right now, we've got a situation where, look, many New Zealanders, talking to some people today actually, in retail, they feel good, right? And the reason they feel good is because there's been massive government subsidies, subsidy and so on. And so the sugar hit's been there. The question is, how's it going to feel in 2-3 years' time? I entirely agree with Damien. If it's all still going along at some level, look, I think that's tough for National ACT. If though people are really struggling in their livelihoods and their jobs and so on, that's a very big opportunity, and you could see a much resurgent national and a possibility for government. I actually, while I'm on a roll, would say one other thing. I don't know, and I haven't given this massive thought, but I don't know that it was actually an election where there was massive ideology, right?
No, not at all. There was none. No ideology. No one talked ideology. This was a feel-good, right?
And so there was just really three things, and Brett Preble wrote a good column for the Herald today or yesterday. So on the night I mentioned two of these, but I had the one in from him. There's three things. One was Jacinda, let's not downplay that. She's good, right? She just, in the sentiment, and as you say, the plus 45 woman got it all going on. Two is COVID.
Yes.
Three, I think we have to be clear, and some of my colleagues don't like it much, but, I can't sugarcoat it, an appalling campaign with no plan or strategy.
Oh, trust me, Simon. We'll get into that in just a moment. Let's talk Greens. We've got to move on. Greens, 7.6%. Damien, a month ago, James Shaw was fretting that they wouldn't get over the threshold. Labour Party voters saved them because they were so disappointed with Jacinda's tepid policies. But the real story, surely, is Chloe's win. She must be appointed co-leader for the Greens to maximise that momentum, right?
Well, I think one of the things that got the Greens over the line was they did have an ideology,
right,
as did ACT, and
right.
So I think so that's why there was a leakage of votes on both sides. Yes, I would like to see Chloe made co-leader
because she's got the skills for it.
I mean, how did Marama Davidson do in Tamaki Makaurau?
Very poorly. Came third.
So I think that's a test, right?
Yep.
She outpolled the party 2-1 in Mangakiki last time round. She's outpolled the party by about a similar ratio now in Auckland Central. She has an electoral appeal.
Right.
A large part of her appeal, I think, that was also driven off her enormous success in getting the cannabis thing on.
Right.
So that's possibly not a trick that you can pull out again. But she doesn't need to. She's
there now.
She is now established as a really credible political operator. I mean, other than cannabis, not my cup of tea politically, but incredibly effective. But the problem is that the party, they're not going to put her in against Marama Davidson because the Greens are ideologically split. You've got Ricardo Menendez, And he looks to be a hardcore leftist Trotskyite.
A Marxist.
A Marxist, yeah.
Yes.
And
get your boxes and framing.
Sorry,
Jesus, come on.
So he does appear to be that way inclined. So it's going to be really interesting what happens in that caucus, because I think James Shaw is not the flavour of the month.
No, Simon. Should the Greens sit in government with Labour, or would they be more effective? Do you think outside as opposition?
Oh, look, again, they haven't thought about it massively. For themselves, politically, if all you're talking about is what it means to them in 2023, they should sit outside. I think that's one of the lessons of MMP. Okay, they dodged the bullet and somehow, and kudos to them, they got themselves back in strongly this time. But we know New Zealand First on the other side being in didn't. And the basic history of MMP is that those minor third parties don't do well if they're in there. So
that's right.
If they're thinking politically, they won't. But if they want the baubles of office and the ability to actually do something and get their feet under some ministerial desk, well, clearly they will.
No,
my guess is they'll want to.
But there's another question here, though, is should Jacinda Ardern do it?
Yeah.
Because Jacinda Ardern was given a mandate by nearly half the electorate to govern.
Yep.
And
my guess is she won't. That would be her instinct. I mean, Grant, Hipkins, Megan Woods and her, that you've got to say, they're nothing if not incredibly savvy politically. And my guess is she's thinking the way you are, Damien. I haven't been reading the tea leaves in terms of the minutiae of what she has and hasn't said, but my hunch would be the politics to her says if you can possibly help it and they're not putting on too much pressure, you keep them out. You'd be Labour alone, and you just might go to them on the odd thing. That, there's a downside. It means they're responsible for everything that happens in government, the Labour Party. But the upside is, well, actually, they're responsible for everything that happens. And when there's good things, it's all about them, and they don't have to worry about some wacky Menendez, the Marxist guy.
Let's talk ACT. 8%. Damien, this was one of the great wins for the right on election night. A historically high win for ACT. ACT are now the values party of the right, and they will simply continue to cannibalise the National Party vote as polarisation starts to manipulate the spectrum. 12% in 2023?
I would love to believe that, but
you've been downplaying ACT since the beginning of this campaign.
Well, see,
Mr. Downer,
it might be just some sort of protection mechanism. I mean,
you don't want to end up like a National Party candidate, right? I see.
It's like, is the girl going to say yes or no? But part of the challenge for ACT is, so you were saying that they were cannibalising National Party vote. I tend to disagree. I think they probably cannibalised New Zealand First, and they would have cannibalised New Conservative. So they were taking votes from there. They probably only took 2, 3, 4% from the National Party. But the National Party had a terrible campaign. So if the National Party has a good campaign next time round,
you can see that turn.
I could see some of that swing around. But perversely, that might help David Seymour maintain discipline in his caucus. Because he can say, right, we got 10 MPs this time, we've only got 6 MPs next time. You better behave yourself if you want to get back in.
Simon, 2023 is the first election ever where Gen Xers and millennials outnumber boomers. Nationals' vote collapse surely is the first real hint of boomer political power waning. ACTs are winning over the next generation of the right, aren't they?
I actually think there's something in what you say. I mean, the challenge for National is to move into that space, stay relevant, continue to look fresh. I've just seen them as, like, you never mention stories from the Corrie Lounge. I probably should never mention them from sitting next to someone on an airplane either, because it sounds a bit elite or something. I was sitting next to a researcher, and literally before I got on this call on the airplane, it's been quite clear to me he was a Green voter.
Right.
He bought into the e-bikes, the cannabis, the various sort of bits and pieces there. And, our challenge, younger guy, our challenge is actually to make sure that we are relevant to someone you would have thought in past gone by would have been a voter for us. So, we're going to have to evolve over the next 3 years. It's a big challenge and a big mountain for National to climb.
Actually, you know what National needs? It's this thing called ideas.
Well, we'll get into that with just the autopsy. I've got the sharpest knives for there. Hold on. New Zealand first, 2.7%. Damien, we will all miss Winston, race-baiting boomers. What will you miss most about Winston?
I will. Well, once again, I regret the fact this is the third time he's missed the opportunity to give a valedictory speech.
I know.
I will miss him defaming people under parliamentary privilege.
Yes,
I think
we'll all miss that. That was a wonderful.
I will miss. I will miss the ongoing SFO investigations. We have one more still to go.
One more to go.
The last gasp. You look at all the stuff about the wine box. I mean, that whole thing was just 10 years of nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, so somebody minimised their tax in the Cook Islands. I mean, it's just so de minimis.
Simon, what will the fishing and racing industries do now for their crony capitalism?
Well, I suppose they'll be hoping that National Exeter goes their way or something. I'm not going to be missing Winston. There's one little thing I will miss, and that's in a sea of increasingly bland, banal, woke kind of parliamentary debate. He at least kind of brought a bit of something, a bit of kind of
Amen.
to it. Outside of that, though, look, I'm with Damien. His achievements actually very few, given what an ultimate insider he was for so long.
Māori Party 1 seat in Wairiki. Damien, the smart money is on Labour cutting a deal with the Māori Party but leaving the Greens out. Has JT reset the Māori Party legacy while also rehabilitating his own?
Yes.
Simon, John Tamahiri ran the campaign of his life, slashed the Labour majorities in all of the Māori electorates. Instead of your small government mantra, why wouldn't National be open to decentralised power of services and putting those in the hands of Māori to run and generate better outcomes than in the public health or education services?
Yes.
New Conservatives, 1.5, Advanced New Zealand, 0.9. Damien, like having Matthew Hooton behind a paywall, isn't it pleasing that snake oil merchants like Jamie Lee Ross and Billy TK were destroyed by the election?
It brought me considerable happiness, yes.
Simon, as a practicing Christian, you must be thrilled that the spite and malice of the New Conservatives only managed 1.5, because that's proof positive that there is a God.
Yes.
Let's get into the autopsy of National, ladies and gentlemen, at 26.8%. Simon, I put to you that the National Party campaign was a dumpster fire crashing into a school bus that exploded next to a pet store. That true, honest National voters were so disgusted by the antics of Bogue, Walker, Muller, Hooton, Falloon, Brownlee's conspiracy theories, Judith's Ian Lee's Galloway malice, and Merv calling late ZB late at night, that they turned away in disgust. Every South Island electorate party voted Labour. You, Simon Bridges, are the only National MP who has come out of this not only with their mana intact, but enhanced. Surely, National needs to reflect on the political values they stand for and the character of the candidate standing.
Well, Bomber, I think you should tell us in the next podcast what you really think.
I'm holding back here. I'm holding back.
Everything you said. Look, I wouldn't go as far as you. I do think, though, you've mentioned the sort of leaking loyalty issues. It's clearly something that we need to fix and quickly in this new Parliament. Secondly, I said on election night, and I say it again, look, in terms of the actual campaign and the competent execution of it, there just wasn't a discernible plan or a strategy. And when that's the case, it makes it very difficult indeed for local candidates through to actually senior politicians to run an effective campaign. And, we didn't.
Damien, at the first cent of losing their jobs, Simon's traitorous caucus turned on him and started National's death spiral. Why would the voters reward political cowardice with their vote? Why would they do that, Damien?
The National Party should have listened to my advice that I gave them on the day before that they rolled Simon Bridges, and I said if they rolled Simon Bridges, they will suffer the electoral cataclysm that they deserve, and that is exactly what happened. These people forget that young Simon here had National in the mid-40s within striking distance of power.
Yes.
events intervened. Why they thought that Todd Muller or even Judith Collins was going to turn that around, it just made no sense. And one of the things that Simon Bridges did, or that you did, Simon, was doing things that were good for the party, not necessarily good for the leader. And neither Judith Collins nor Todd Muller seemed to understand that it was about the party, not about them. And that was a catastrophic failure. And now they got Mark Mitchell. God,
Simon, I remember that weekend when you had Treasury over a barrel over the security of their budget. And you, sir, were the one who was marking the drumbeat of what was happening, when it was happening, and how it was happening. The government looked like they were a bunch of headless chooks running around. I compare the mastery of those moments when you had the nation waiting for your call, and then I see the absolute disaster of the campaign. What the bloody hell happened?
Well, look, you might say that I couldn't possibly comment, of course. I mean, I think there's many things, and I don't want to be sort of sound all political speak. I am glad, and some would say it's too late, but I am glad we're going to have a review. I genuinely hope actually it gets to the heart of some of the things that we've been talking about. I think in the end, Judith got some of the issues that could have driven vote very well, but the problem was we needed them right back at the sort of changeover from me to Muller, and so we were late to the party. And in the end, when you start talking tax cuts or wealth tax in the last week or two, it does start to have the whiff of desperation. As we saw it, it probably drove the Labour Party vote up in the end.
Can you explain to us what is the National Party philosophy, Simon? What does the National Party actually stand for? Because I've watched the campaign, I still don't know.
No, you know exactly what it is. It's all the things you hate and stand against from us. And those are still true, but I think it is true that a given candidate in any seat would have struggled to reel off the two or three key things, and that's really important. Look, you can't sing from the same hymn sheet if you don't know what the hymn sheet
Simon,
is. Right? That was a basic problem.
What was National slogan this time round?
What was our what?
I mean, Labour had "Let's keep moving." What was the National Party slogan? Right, that's it.
That kind of sums it up, right? That kind of sums it up.
I think that's your answer.
Simon, in rebuilding, let's get serious here about the rebuilding of the National Party. You can't have a once great party just fall on itself here. Is the solution a far better candidate academy, where you're actually going out, finding candidates of true character who are able to articulate a National Party philosophy and have them ready for the 2023 election? Because I again come back to that long list of people I just handed out there. They had actions and seemingly character flaws when the pressure came on. Does the National Party need a new rebirth of candidates?
That could possibly be something that comes out of the review, in all seriousness. I think, no, I would personally wouldn't take it too far, in as much as, look, if you just go around near me, we had Tanya Tapsell, an outstanding young Māori woman, standing in the East Coast.
Yes.
If you go down in Wellington, even though he had absolutely no chance of getting there, we had a guy called David Patterson, who is a top commercial lawyer, Chapman Tripp. We had some outstanding candidates. The ultimate issue is they don't get to come in. And, you reel off those names. It's very hard to argue with that. It may well be we see change around these sort of processes and looking at CVs much more strenuously from the review.
Simon, you would be mad to take back the leadership after the way you've been treated, but your caucus would be madder to not beg you to do it. What do you want for the National Party?
Look, I want to do well in 2023, straight up, I really do. We had a constructive meeting today. I'm there to be part of the team. I can tell you, and it's not just some line that people use, I don't want to be the leader. I've been there, done that. It's a big task. I just want to be part of the rebuild that gets us back. And look, we've raised some very real issues this evening. National's got, actually, I think we've probably got about a year where not a lot is happening. and we've got to be serious about fixing some of these issues. So in the following 2 years, we're competitive in 2023.
So Judith will keep the bench warm for a year, and then somebody else will. But I mean, see, but who is there? I mean, Chris Luxon. I mean, I won't ask you to comment, but I mean, cripes almighty, he would be terrible. Mark Mitchell says he doesn't want it. Dan Bidwar's now out of Parliament. So, you know, I like Dan Bidwar. I thought he was a really good, because there are so many good people that you've lost. Correct. I mean, that woman from Wanganui was no loss. But
there's no doubt. Look, there's some great people. You know, we mentioned you just mentioned Dan Bidwar. You know the story. High school dropout, turned butcher, turned a masters at Harvard. Had a lot to contribute. It's a tragedy, but guys like him, I think, will actually stick around and will be part of the rebuild post, or preferably the government. Post 2023.
But see, I mean, he should have been higher up the list. And I mean, look, Nick Smith, he's held that seat since about 1924. It's just, I think there was a regeneration that perhaps should have happened 2 or 3 years back. But never mind.
Final word, Damien, predictions from here.
Status quo, nothing will change. This will be a conservative, do-nothing government that will constantly frustrate and break your heart, Bomber. They will break your heart.
Simon, predictions from here.
The next year will be fairly uneventful, actually. I think it'll all be nice. Journalists will stay nice to the Labour government, and that'll be sort of that. I predict, though, in about a year's time, you'll start to see it become much more interesting. And actually, there will be a real fight for government in 2023. 2002, we were down and out. 2005, we almost won. I think you could see the same, or possibly even us winning in 2023.
My final predictions, it'll be a Labour Māori Party government. The Greens will be left out, and they will be furious about it. I think that without a clear mandate for a new regeneration, the National Party is going to be in a lot of trouble, and they're going to be continually cannibalised by ACT, who are going to be seen as the new right-wing values party.
Yes, please.
And it's all go. Look, that's been the Waterstone Election Podcast Series. It's been a hilarious joy bringing it to you each week. Simon, thank you so much for your comments.
Thanks very much, guys.
Be well.
Simon.
Cheers, guys.
Bye.
All right. Well, that was fun.